understanding that goes back not just to ancient Egypt itself, but far thousands and thousands millennia beyond, upsets what is effectively the reigning religion of today, except it doesn't call itself a religion. It calls itself science, which is based supposedly on reason. It's not. None of those things are true. It's not based on science, and science is not based upon reason. Maybe we'll get time to
Well,
get
some sciences, but archaeology in particular is very rigid in its ideas, and a lot of it is based on the professors that have written books and that teach these ideas, and they don't want to let them go. And when new knowledge is discovered that challenges those ideas, they fight it rigorously, even if it's knowledge like the stuff that you exposed with Dr. Robert Schoch, which was the water erosion on the Sphinx, which we were talking about before the podcast, which is one of the best pieces of evidence, because the last time there was rainfall, heavy rainfall in the Nile Valley was, what was it, 9,000 BC? Is that what it was?
They debate it, but it's way before the beginning of dynastic Egypt, and then it's a question of how old or when those rains fell. Because interesting bit of thing here that I'm now at liberty to relate publicly. Originally, I wasn't. When I first got Schoch over to Egypt, which is another 2-hour podcast in itself, the history of getting Schoch interested in this stuff, and when he finally agreed, very hesitantly and very skeptically, to come along because he had to see the evidence for himself, and I scraped together a bit of money to bring him over, and we got into the Sphinx enclosure. I don't think it was got in legally. I think we bribed our way in very early in the morning. Well, in Egypt, everything is possible. And bribed our way in, and he walked into the Sphinx enclosure. Actually, when we get that up on the screen, you'll see the level of the water, the extent of the weathering, of the water weathering. And Schoch looked at it, and everybody else walks into the Sphinx enclosure and has this shock of recognition in the presence of this fabulous work of sacred sculpture, in fact, of sacred sculpture. And Schoch looked, but Schoch is a no, that's not it. We're way back, Jamie, right to the beginning, first slides. And Schoch, everybody else sees the Sphinx as a work of art. Schoch sees the rocks as his geologist. And he back like this. And he said, wow, these rocks look like they're hundreds of thousands of years old. And he said, don't quote me on that. Because that's, of course, absolute heresy, that the most spectacular sculpture on earth should be, tens of thousands of years. Actually, even the 4,500 years that it's associated with do not conform with anybody's idea of how civilization developed. This goes back to your of why the academic, I call it the quackademic establishment, is so passionately defends the old paradigm the way that it does, because the reigning paradigm, the reigning religion today, which is not acknowledged as religion, is that this is the Church of Progress, and its credo, just like the virgin birth, is the credo of early Christianity or present-day Christianity. Not that they know what they're talking about. The credo of the Church of Progress is, we are the most sophisticated human beings that have ever lived on the face of the planet, with our hydrogen bombs and our nerve gas and our striped toothpaste and our Disneylands. We're the best that ever was. And secondly, that progress, as it's called, goes in a straight line from primitive cavemen up to ourselves. And when it becomes self-evident that in very, very ancient times they had knowledge of precession, which is an incredible thing to, it's almost unimaginable that it happens through careful observation, because the sun, I don't know if all of the audience will know what this is, so maybe it's worth talking about. The sun, if you look at the spring equinox now, it's in the sun is rising against the last bits of Pisces. It may even be in the earliest stages of Aquarius. And gradually the sun precesses, that's to say, it goes backwards around the zodiac in a cycle that takes 25,000, canonically 25,920 years to make a complete circle. What this means is that it actually takes 72 years, precisely, for the sun to precess 1 degree. So this is nothing. Who's going to be sitting there for 72 years watching the track of the sun in a cycle that takes 26,000 years to go around?
And observe that there's a discrepancy, and have to write it down and pass that information down.
And then why should they care? It's somehow or another deeply connected with the civilization of that time and with our civilization.